Good morning, everybody. All right, how did you guys enjoy day one at DevNet Create? Is it good? Awesome. I am so relieved because we were really nervous, as I told you, about what would DevNet Create be like. We had our dreams of what we thought and were hoping it would be, but I'm so excited because it seems like everybody's having a good time. Everybody's learning new things. The feedback seems to be that the content is spot on. People are really excited about the speakers. As we said, 90% of the speakers came from the community. It's all of you. So thank you. Thank you for all your participation and energy in all of this. So we're excited to kick off day two. So day two for DevNet Create with our morning keynotes here. So this morning, we're actually going to have a few talks. We're actually going to give you a break today between the morning keynotes. Are we good? And everybody was very patient, had a stretch last time, but we decided to build in a break. So we're actually going to start out this morning hands-on with DevNet Create. And we'll have Mandy Whaley and Ashley Roach coming up and talking with and bringing up also some of the people who were hands-on with DevNet Create yesterday to talk about what they've done. Then we have our Department of Commerce expanding economic opportunity through open data. And Zachary and Radhika Bhatt will be here to speak about that. Then you'll get your break. And then we have Damon Edwards, and I know many of you have come to see Damon, on self-service operations because failure still happens. And then we have a special talk, which is Mandy will come back, and there's a talk that she's given, which is very powerful. It's the power of DataOps for women in tech. And I think this is going to be a really great eye-opening treat for all of you, and it's always a hit. So anyway, lots in store for you today, and we're just going to start right off. Mandy and Ashley. Welcome, Mandy.
All right, thanks. Yeah, we'll leave it up here just in case. Yeah. Okay, welcome back, everybody. We're really excited about this excellent set of content we've got for this morning. Really excited to see all the things that are going to be happening. So I'm Mandy Whaley. I lead our evangelism and developer experience team for Cisco DevNet. And what we want to do today in this hands-on with DevNet Create is we want to put the emphasis back on the community and look at some of the work that people have been doing at the conference, some of the coding and hacking that's going to be going on. We're going to have some live demos and make it risky and, dive into the details and look at some code and some projects and all of those things. So that's what we're going to do today. I've got Ashley Roach. He is a member of our Evangelist team. He's a principal engineer.
Hey, everyone.
And I'll let him introduce himself.
Yeah, hi. I'm Ashley Roach. I've actually been at Cisco now for 7 years, which is longer than I've been at any company, I think. I did a couple startups prior to that. Yeah, really excited, and it's great to meet everybody. I mean, I think for us, even though it's a large company, we do have lots of events, and we tend to our events historically, as probably you already know, have been like Cisco Live and that sort of thing. So we have our kind of immediate community, and so it's great to meet all these new faces and all of the new community here today. So thanks again, and we'll talk more later.
Yeah. So just to look back on day one, I just wanted to highlight some of the cool things that came out in some of the presentations. So we had the release of the Spark Video SDK, and you'll get to see some hands-on work with that later in our talk. We have the $1 million in Meraki gear giveaway. We had a lot of talk around Kubernetes and microservices and bots in the enterprise. I sat in on some really great security talks yesterday that I thought were very eye-opening. The whole idea of a software supply chain is really important in the DevOps world, and then all the container networking announcements. So it was a really action-packed day one, and we're really looking forward to day two. So just real quick, if you want to find us on Twitter, here's all of our information. Here's Ashley's info, and here is my info. So I don't know if you want to say a little bit about your background and how you got into working with APIs, because I'm going to dive into that a little bit.
Sure. So I'm actually a self-taught programmer, so I have a liberal arts background. Go liberal arts, yeah. Parlez-vous français? So I've just had a passion for computing ever since I saw like my first Apple IIe when I was in school. So doing like Logo Basic and that sort of stuff I liked it. So fast forward until through the web era, and now here we are into like sort of an API era. It's just something I've gotten really fascinated about It's really cool to be able to expose data and then enable people to do whatever they want with it, right? So, we have examples like the open data coming from, our government, for example, or state and local governments as well. And it's just a really fun space, I think, to be in right now.
Yeah, absolutely. So kind of similar background for me. So I'm from Austin, Texas. Anybody here from Austin? Woo! Everybody tells me they want to move to Austin, which is great. But so I love this sign. It's like boots, flip-flops, and an Airstream trailer. Like, what's more Austin than that? And then I work in developer experience. So my background, lots of software development, and then moving into developer experience and really thinking about what is it like to use APIs, how do you make them developer friendly? And I always feel like the Lorax a little bit. I don't know if you know the story of the Lorax. He speaks for the trees. I feel like I speak for the devs. So I'm always representing the developer perspective in a lot of the conversations that I'm in. And so what I want to talk a little bit about is why this moment that we're bringing DevNet Create into existence and why there's so much interesting stuff for developers to work on. So it kind of starts for me with like, why do I like APIs? And the reason I've always been fascinated with APIs and integrations is that it's like this pile of Legos that you can build something really cool off. So it's this composable set of tools that a developer has, and you can combine it in infinite variations and ways and solve a problem. And it really puts the power of problem solving into the developer who's in the line of business or in their community and gives them the power to do that. And that's what has always fascinated me about APIs. And right now, developers have the opportunity to work with a really interesting set of Legos. I think it's our most interesting set of Legos that we've had in a while. And that is this idea that sensors, and sensors could be a temperature sensor, a pressure sensor, your phone, a video camera, the network, any kind of sensor that you're talking about, plus the easy connectivity that we have, plus cloud services, plus data. This really kind of equals magic, and it opens up a lot of opportunity for developers. And that is what I'm hearing at this conference, and that's what a lot of the innovation and creativity that's coming out is focused around. And this is interesting as it relates to my background. So I started my career here in a chemical plant. I was a chemical engineer. I did automated process control, and writing software for control systems is how I figured out that I actually liked to code and that I wanted to be a software engineer. And when I worked in this space, I did automated process control, which is completely the Internet of Things, right? A chemical plant is full of sensors, and they're all connected, but they weren't really connected to the internet. And I got into using neural networks and trying to do predictive control for chemical processes, and it was really cool, but this was kind of a long time ago, and we just could never quite get there. We couldn't get enough data. We couldn't get enough connectivity. We didn't have the cloud. And so we got really close, and you could glimpse it, but we weren't quite there yet. And what's so exciting is that now we have the data, we have the compute, we have everything connected. We can get to a lot of this vision of really the power of machine learning, plus these sensors, plus the connectivity. And it's getting to be so easy that you see, like, I feel like every other week I see some article on the internet that's like this, where someone's taken a machine learning algorithm and applied it to, in this one they were seeing, could a machine learning algorithm name paints? Could it look at the color of a paint and pick a reasonable paint name for it? Which I thought was really funny. So they analyzed like the color information and they fed it data sets and data sets of paint, and then they came up with these colors. And I really want to paint my office Dorkwood with Carrington trim, right? I think that's like fantastic. And you can see that it's getting close, right? It's not perfect, and this probably wasn't quite a big enough data set, but it's getting close. There's another one of these where a machine learning algorithm came up with recipe names, and you should look it up because it's hilarious. Some of the recipes that came up were like whole chicken cookies, and like it was very entertaining. So I love this because it means it's getting accessible, it's getting real. There's machine learning libraries you can use in Python. It's not something you have to be in grad school to do. Anyone can do it these days, and I find that to be really energizing. So anybody know what this is? Can you guess what this is? Yeah, it is an automated sprinkler system. So this is the board in my garage connected to my sprinkler system, which I hate. Like, it was the worst user experience. Trying to set the zones and the timing, and you have this dial and these arrows and like no information coming back. And so what did I always do? I would just try to set it to the most basic blanket kind of settings. And that really wasn't the most efficient way to use water, right? So I recently replaced this with an IoT one. And this is an exact example of this sensors, connectivity, cloud, and data, and then magic happens. And to me, it was such a concrete and interesting example, because now I have this thing. Essentially, it's still wires going into, actuate things through the voltage, but it's connected to my Wi-Fi. It's connected to the internet. It can look at the weather. It can use machine learning to think about how much I should water and when, and it's saving tons of water. So connecting these things together has taken something that was a frustrating interface. I just applied blanket settings. I never wanted to touch it because it would always break, and resulted in a lot of wasted water. And now I have something that has a delightful interface I can use on my smartphone. It uses weather and analytics. It uses smart schedules, and it ends up saving a lot of water. And that's a pretty cool problem to solve.
And you changed the default password.
And of course, I changed the default password. I work for Cisco. Security is like top of mind, right? So anyways, I just wanted to bring that out. And you might think about examples like that you see. I thought in the maker panel yesterday that this really came out as, if you see a problem, it's probably a problem for someone else. So that's an interesting area of opportunity. Okay, and now what we want to do is we really want to put the focus on the community. So we've got several different people, several different demos that we're going to bring up and do some talking. So first we've got Drew. Where's Drew? Drew. Oh. All right.
They might be able to turn it up.
Yeah. So yeah, come on up. Come on up. Yeah.
Here, I'm gonna move over.
Okay. Hello, everybody. My name's Drew. I'm with a company called Denoma Software. We're a pretty small, set of developers, and we do our own software that helps Cisco customers with their compliance needs, basically. I'm a .NET developer, and I've been with Denoma for not even a year, and I come from like a totally different industry of oil and gas. So for me, when I was invited to come here, I had just a totally open mind. I'm like, I'm very new to this space. I'm just going to come and see what I can pick up. So yesterday, I just happened to be, actually, I came to the workshop before yours. My boss wanted me to. And then I'm like, I don't want to move. I'm just going to stay here. And then Ashley had his workshop. They were both very good. But I picked up so much from the Open API workshop that, I'm still new to this industry. And what I got was just inspired. I was able to say, this is something that I can learn. This is something that I can really just, if I can dream it, I can do it, thanks to the wonderful APIs and things. And not because it's easy or because, I'm brilliant or anything like that. It's mainly because of the great community, the great support, and I'm just so happy I came. So thank you guys.
Hey,
All right, thanks so much.
Here, I'll take the.
Yeah, we'll take the mic, and you can have a seat here. And next we've got John. So come on up. And John is from the Holberton School, and he's going to talk a little bit about that. And then he's also worked with open data, which is going to be covered in our next keynote. So he had an interesting story.
Thank you, and thank you to DevNet Create and Cisco for inviting Holberton School to come here. We had, I think, about 15 students, and we're a full-stack software engineering program in San Francisco. We have about a 2-year program, and one of the cool things about our program is we have 40% women and 60% non-white people, and then white guys like me who are doing career shifts. So I was kind of in the middle of my career as a clinical social worker, and I was actually working with open data in the city of Chicago, and currently, like in my career, the way that we share information is through PDFs, and nobody wants to share their PDF because they spend so much time and it's their PDF, and it has all this great information, but we're expected to help people find resources. And Google search is inadequate. And somehow I found open data in Chicago. Chicago has recently started supporting this trend. And so I gathered over 5,000 different resources, and I ended up creating a mini web app with JavaScript and Google APIs with all the data that I had compiled. I created my own database, and my database is open now, and it's searchable. It's probably the best referral tool in the city of Chicago, and someone found it, and they ended up buying the branding for it. And so that's how I got started in tech, and that's what brought me here to San Francisco. And so I was super excited that you guys are supporting open data. One of the huge challenges that I found that I would be very curious to hear about is how people that are not in the tech industry are so resistant to automation and these, like a tool like I made that can make your job so much faster. So I'll be curious to hear more about that.
Awesome.
And do the hack too.
Cool.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I think I was really excited to hear about the open data connection. All right. Next we've got a demo. So Anthony Shaw from Dimension Data, I'll let him introduce himself, but he has created a demo that brings together bots and networking and incident response and all kinds of interesting things. So. Your chair is sinking.
Yeah, this is the entertainment part.
Can I just have that?
This is not an IoT
Keep it
chair.
open, 'cause I'll plug it.
So yeah, in terms of open data, I mean, I think I got exposed initially to open data at the API Strat conference.
Yes, me too.
Probably 3 years ago. So there's a gentleman in the API community who calls himself the API Evangelist, and so he did this presentation about open data, and then had another, like a vendor or something that did open data as well. And so that kind of opened my eyes to sort of the more progressive cities that are doing this sort of thing. And then even fast forward to today, you've got like Steve Ballmer just launched his USA Facts site. So in terms of like, how do you make it accessible? And I think, Radhika and team can talk about that as well, how they're trying to make things accessible.
All
So
right,
turn it over to you,
All right.
and the piston will go down.
Morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Good, we're awake. Okay. So if you can please turn your minds back to 2004, and we're going to talk a little bit about an incident and a sign. There's a saying that every sign has a story, and where I was working when I was at college, there was a sign in the data center that said, "No running in the data center." And I'm going to explain why that's there. So it's 2004. I checked yesterday. Usher was #1, 36 weeks that year.
Whoa, wow.
4 different songs. And I was pretty proud because I managed to get this as my smartphone. This is a Sony Ericsson P910. Did anyone else have one?
I had one. Yeah.
They were really good.
They were good, yeah.
The battery life was pretty good, actually.
Yeah,
Probably
yeah.
better than my iPhone
Yeah.
7.
Reasonable camera, too.
Yeah. And I was in a support role working at a hosting company. I was on call. It was 2 a.m. And everything went completely wrong. And I went to the office, went to the data center, and basically had to go. It was just me at the time, in between the help desk, where the phones were going crazy, and between the data center. So I was running backwards and forwards, checking equipment, running back, answering the phone, talking to the client, running back again. And that explains the sign. So I managed to run whilst looking a different direction and knocked myself fully unconscious.
Oh my gosh.
In the data center.
Did they take it with that phone?
No. There was actually a security camera which captured this. I was alone as well in the building, so that could have been really interesting. And there was a small blood stain on the pillar as well. So obviously, to try and stop that from happening ever again, I've just put together a really simple demo of what can be done with Cisco Spark. And if I'd have had that available at the time, injuries could have been prevented. So.
Have you seen the new discussion in DevOps about like humane IT and being like kind to your ops people? I would say that did not qualify as humane IT.
So there were two things I was trying to do. One of them was to check equipment, and the other one was to try and see whether clients were still complaining. So that was typically a good indicator whether everything was back to normal. So what I've done is set up a simple Twitter application that pulls anyone mentioning DevNet Create, and then it just runs a sentiment analysis trying to figure out whether they're happy or angry. So if anyone's tweeting about DevNet Create using the hashtag, then it will come up in the feed. But I've got access to that on my phone because I'm using the app. So I can see a live tweet feed of our clients. Obviously, I wouldn't maybe use DevNet Create in the real application. I'd use our client site or our website, and I'd see mentions of it being down. So you can set up filters based on that. That's typically a pretty good indicator, actually. The other thing that I've set up is two CSR 1000Vs, which I'm using just for this demo. So these are virtual routers running iOS XE. And I've got just a simple Spark room where if I were in the data center, then I can just issue some simple commands. Obviously, live demos are always a good idea.
That's what makes it fun.
Okay, so I've got one called CSR2, and we're going to see what happens with that one. So the bot in the background actually goes and logs into the router and just pulls out some basic information for me, so I don't need to pull out a console and start connecting to it.
So you're using the, which APIs on the devices are you using? Is it the device level REST-net conf-ing, or is it that?
No. So this bot actually supports all of the different Cisco frameworks.
Okay.
So it supports the newer stuff, which has netconf and yang, but it also supports the sort of older routers, which you can just connect to via SSH. And it just pulls out some information that I might be interested in. Probably the key one's uptime. So looking at the uptime, if that was a very small number, then I'd be suspicious. And I'd want to know something like, has anyone changed the configuration recently? This demo is all in GitHub, and I'll share the link at the end. So what I've done is stored what should be the configuration for the router in GitHub.
Do the piston thing. Cool.
Okay, so I'm just going to ask my bot to go and look at the configuration, the running configuration of the router, and check that no one's been fiddling with it and changing the settings. So it's going to go out and do that for me. And then when it comes back, it'll give me a status. Whilst we do that, let's see what people are saying about my demo.
That's a nice trick.
I'm glad there haven't been any trolls.
Great.
It's not a challenge, people.
Yeah, so it's come back. The configuration has drifted from the golden config. So that config is in GitHub, and you can have a look at that. So this is a typical scenario where someone made some configuration changes and forgot to write that to memory, and then the machine, the router rebooted, and then everything went wrong. So that's my short demo, just showing some basic things. I also kind of want to point out that the bot framework that we're using here for Cisco Spark, I just spoke to Adam. He said I was the first one to make one of these open source, and which is pretty cool because Hubot Spark is Hubot is a GitHub framework for running bots. So I open sourced the Spark plugin for that. But just recently, somebody added bot API support to my package, and we were having a discussion around the changes. Adam piped in and gave us some pointers, and then that all got updated and merged. And I also recently realized that the person who was making contributions actually works for a competitor, which is pretty cool because we're both trying to solve the same problem, and that's the problem the client wants a solution for. So the fact that we can share the same code and the same ideas actually helps both of us.
Cool. That's a great
Cool.
example of community coming together.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, if anyone wants to keep in touch, then I'm on Twitter and I'm on GitHub as well.
Thank
so the
you.
GitHub site has got the code for this. It's called Panic Room. Cool. Thanks.
Thank you very much. All right. All right. Next we're going to dive into some mini hacks and talk about some of the coding that people have done in our mini hacks. I'm not even going to bother to connect that. David, you can go ahead and come back to it. And Jose, who has been a long-time DevNet contributor, he was at our very first DevNet event and has been a huge champion within our community. He did some work on some of the mini hacks, and he wants to tell us about what he worked on.
Yeah, sure. Well, basically, yesterday I sat with Oleg and did the iOS mini hack
I don't think we need
to use the new Fastlane integration between Cisco and Apple. It's very easy to actually do markings in your app to do some QoS in the wireless infrastructure from Cisco, which if you come from the network side, you know that's one of the things that really, really hurt when you're using networking gear. So actually being just making that simple change like a constant in the code was very easy, and you can actually go ahead and say, hey, this is a voice app, or this is a best effort app, or a background app, and you can go ahead and change between those main 4 queues, or even go to the other 5 that you have, like, for example, audio and video, or management, traffic. So it was very, very easy to do that. And again, if you come from a background, from a networking background, doing that in your network, it's always a trouble. So it's very easy, yeah. It was a very, very good mini hack.
So you took an iOS application that you had, implemented that SDK, set some of the changes, and now it has preferred optimized QoS when it runs on the Cisco.
Yeah, and you can see very easily in the mini hack, you can see very easily how you can capture the traffic in Wireshark, and you can see the markings there. It's prioritizing the traffic depending on if you said video or audio, or if it's best effort.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. You want to hang out?
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. All right. Next up, we've got David Stout. He's a principal engineer on our DevNet team. And we're really excited about the Spark video SDKs that were released yesterday. So he's going to show us some example applications using those. And you can go do a mini hack using these SDKs while you're here.
And where are the mini hacks?
The mini hacks are that way. they're
Tucked around in the corner,
into
yeah.
the tucked over in the corner over there.
Yeah. So thanks, Mandy. Yeah, I've worked for Cisco for 15, 16, 17 years now. I've worked in telephony, computer kind of area for longer than that, and it's really an exciting time. Really excited about the Spark Video SDK. It's something that we've kind of been able to do a little bit with Jabber and Remote Expert Mobile in the past, but this is, it's a portable WebRTC based, cloud based, just super well documented and easy to use. Really excited to see what developers like you take and do with this. So if I'm going to show a little demo here, but please do come around the corner. We have a number of mini hacks, including one that uses the Spark Video SDK to provide like a concierge service for Cisco Meraki captive portal website. So it's kind of merging the two technologies together. If you're familiar with the Spark APIs that have been around so far, they're based on the messaging part. So creating rooms, putting people into rooms, automating messages, chat bots like you just saw here. That's great. That's really maturing, and there's lots of application developers there. This new SDK is about taking the voice and video part of Cisco Spark, the highly secure, very HD quality, and letting you very easily embed that into web apps or iOS apps, or soon to be Android. So you can build essentially a new Spark client in your own image the way you want it to be, if you like, or just take bits and pieces of it that make sense. So in this example, we have a simple banking, fake banking app where you might want to allow people to talk to a specialist on a particular topic, with voice and video and full collaboration. So you're able to share files, whiteboard, screen sharing. Those features are coming as well. But it's really, really easy to embed this stuff into a web page. One of the features coming out in the video SDK are widgets. And essentially, you can just put a little bit of code, import a JavaScript library that we will serve to you from the cloud, from the Spark CDN, put that into a div with a couple pieces of information, and it's essentially a full Spark, almost a full Spark client in there. So it does voice and video and messaging and file sharing and all that. So if you can put a div into a web page, you can video enable a website, which is, I think, pretty cool. And it's an open source library, so you can go to GitHub, look at and modify all the web source. You can skin it the way you want and CSS it for branding, etc. And beyond the widgets, there's a full-blown SDK, so you can build essentially a full soft phone with your own controls and everything like that if you don't like the way it looks out of the box. So it's very flexible. So in essence, all you have to do in the simplest incarnation, here we have a div, HTML div. We're loading some CSS and a bundled .js from a CDN hosted by Spark. So this means that the widget code is hosted by us. You don't have to mess with it. You don't have to install it on your server. You don't have to keep it up to date. It's always has the latest features and security updates and everything automatically if you want it. And you can certainly keep this on site so you have a tested version. But once you have that code in your page, you can simply create a div and give it some special parameters. In this case, we want to use the Cisco Spark Space widget functionality. So we give it a Spark token. Here I have just a developer token, but you may want to grab this with OAuth or something like that. And we want to start a session with this person, dstat@cisco.com.
Who's that
really,
guy? Who's that guy?
That's me. Yeah. So it's really as easy as that. You can set the height and weight. You can embed this div into the page anywhere you like. And then just boom, start a call or video session or screen sharing or file sharing session with the person that you specify. Let's see if we can make it work. So I've saved just this piece of code in a separate web page here. Right there. So if you refresh that, it's essentially a little tiny Spark mini client in the div that I specified. The interface is very similar. We can go to the message functionality. The persistent chat is there with all the historical messages. I can click here and share a file from my machine. I believe whiteboarding and screen sharing features, if they're not there already, are coming soon. You can also, of course, start a voice and video call. This uses WebRTC, so there's no plugins. You don't have to install anything on the PC as long as you're on a supported browser.
There you go.
My phone's down there. I left it.
There you go. And there we go.
Okay, it's a little dark. A little dark in the audience there. There we go.
There you go.
So, hey.
Cool.
Hey.
Nice. All right. Excellent. Live coded
Live coded voice and video app. Yeah. So in order to embed this in the web page, I'm going to kind of activate this button right here that says we want to talk to Sandy. I'm going to edit the HTML live here. And basically just do a pop-up window. All right, so I'm going to save that code, the little bit of JavaScript that it will take that web page we just looked at and open it up in a pop-up with a particular set of dimensions. And then I can float that around and talk to my person while we look at mortgages and interest rates and all that kind of good stuff.
Very cool.
That's it.
All right, thank you, David. That's fantastic. Okay, so the speaker clock didn't start, so I have no idea where we are on time. Do we have time for one more, or are we way over? We're way over. Okay, so we do have one more. Jock, you can stand up and say hi. We're going to do an IoT hack. This is the water sensor hack. You can, I don't think we're actually going to do it, but no. So you can head over, sorry, this is Jock. This is his hack, sorry. You can build it in the MiniHacks. You can dunk the sensor in water and send messages to Spark and get alerts. And it simulates a water main breaking and you getting an alert when that happens. And it's very cool, and you get to play with actual hardware. So go do it. Jock worked really hard on it. All right. Thank you very much. Sorry we went over, but we had so much great people that wanted to give them a lot of time to talk. So
Cool.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Yep. Thank you, guys. Okay. Sorry. There's no time.
Thank you. Hands-on with DevNet Create. That was awesome, right? Good job, guys. All right. Okay, so for our next talk, we have Zachary and Radhika Bhatt. Please come on up. You can set up your computers as you come. We're super excited about partnering with the Department of Commerce on this new project. And let me just tell you a little bit about Drew and Radhika. So Drew is a senior analyst with the US Department of Commerce Data Services. And she was the leader and co-founder of the Opportunity Project, which we're going to hear about here. She was a 2014 Presidential Management Fellow at HUD and HHS. Drew holds a Master's in Public Policy from Johns Hopkins and is a PhD candidate in Social Policy at Brandeis. Her favorite color is black. She likes tattoos. She likes tattoos? Okay, no demo of that. And her spirit, animal is a lady lion. Radhika. So Radhika is a user experience designer and front-end developer with the US Department of Commerce Data Service. She's a recipient of the 2016 DC Femtech Powerful Female Designer Award. Radhika is left-handed. Enjoys left-handed? Anyone left-handed?
Yeah.
Enjoys marbling paper and likes watching science fiction movies with popcorn.
Yes. That's me.
And one thing that I'm really proud of is as we were creating this partnership, they somehow managed to write a wonderful blog about the opportunity and get approval from the government to publish the blog. Amazing, right?
Yeah. Takes some time.
Thank you, guys. Go ahead.
Great,
30 minutes on the clock, please.
Okay.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. We're really excited to talk to you guys today about the Opportunity Project, which is one of the ways that we at the Department of Commerce and in general in federal government are trying to work with developers like you to create economic opportunities for people across the country, leveraging the power of open data and technology. So once again, I am Drew. I don't really know what a senior analyst means, although that is my title. I'm a social scientist and I do design research.
My name is Radhika Bhatt. I'm a user experience designer and also a Meerkat impersonator, so we can talk about that later.
Ask her to do it in Q&A. Okay, so we're going to talk about the Opportunity Project and open data. But before we dive into that, I want to start off with an idea for you guys, which is that government data can help real people to solve real problems, and we just need to get the right people to the table. So to put that into context, I want to tell you guys about Brianna. So Brianna, who you see on the screen here, is a really incredible person. She has an amazing story and a lot of challenges that she's overcome. And I want to tell you about the ways that open data could really have helped her life and why she came to speak at the White House. So the picture that you're seeing of her here is in March 2016, when we first launched the Opportunity Project. Brianna came to speak about her experiences. So Brianna lives in Baltimore. She has an adorable young son. And when he was a newborn, she was at one point commuting 4 hours a day, which we're in California, so some people might not blink at that, but for East Coast people, that's a long time, within the city of Baltimore to get her young child to daycare, to get to a job training program, to get to work, to get to the school that she was trying to get her degree so that she could have more opportunities for her and her family. So there was a lot of information for Brianna that could have really changed her experience. If she had known about transit routes, if she had accessible data on transportation options, on the locations of daycare facilities, job training centers, job opportunities near her, if she had that information at her fingertips through technology, she could have had a really different experience. And when Brianna came to speak at the White House, that was one of the things that she talked about, because we had worked with developers from different companies to create tools that actually put that information at her fingertips. And not only is Brianna an amazing person on her own, she's also a community organizer. Because it's 2017 and we can put all of this information at her fingertips, it not only helps her, but it helps people in the communities that she works with. So when Brianna came to speak at the White House, she talked about this tool that I'll tell you guys about now. So this heat map is part of a tool called Opportunity Score. Opportunity Score was created by Redfin, which is a company that you guys may have heard of. They have a lot of housing data on rental and homes for purchase. Maybe you've sold your house through Redfin. And so obviously they have a lot of data on housing and affordable housing even. They also have Walk Score. And our department, the Department of Commerce, the Census Bureau, has really incredible information on the locations of almost all jobs and job characteristics across the country. So the developers at Redfin put all of that information together and they created Opportunity Score, which is what you're looking at. So what this is basically a score from 0 to 100 that tells you how accessible that home location is from jobs within 30 minutes without a car. So a 30-minute car-free commute, either walking or through transit. So you can type in any address, look at any housing listing, and find out on a scale of 0 to 100 how accessible is it, and really how many jobs and which jobs are available to you within 30 minutes without a car. So imagine how transformative that would have been for someone like Brianna, who was trying to solve those problems for her family. So the next tool that I want to talk about, I'm going to ask you guys to think about a totally different part of the country. So maybe some people here are from a small town or have been to small towns in rural areas, but I want you to imagine that you're living in a small town in rural southwestern Virginia. So one of the problems that you might be experiencing is that there's not a lot of people in the town, and you need to do something like buy a new fire truck to keep everybody safe. And because you don't have that many people, you don't have a lot of time and expertise on how to do that or how to get a grant, you're probably having a bake sale after church every Sunday to purchase a new fire truck. And you can imagine that that's probably going to take a while to sell enough brownies. So the thing that you might not know, and probably don't know, is that there's a whole office of rural development at the US Department of Agriculture, which has basically loans and loan guarantees specifically for that problem, specifically to help small rural towns with the infrastructure that they need. So you could be getting this loan overnight, pay it back over 50 years, and have so much more time available to really tell the story of your town, do things that are really important. And more importantly, you might not really have the technology available to you to tell that story, to tell people what are the unique resources that I have in my community that would help me transition my economy, since manufacturing has left, to bring people into the community and really want to live there and visit. So what this tool, Find Your Town, did, you can go to findyour.town now and check it out, is it basically solves exactly those problems. And they did that with developers using open data. So they took USDA's data on all of those loans and loan guarantees and grant resources that are available to communities. They combined it with functionality to create a custom website and storyboard that requires no greater technical skill than using PowerPoint. And they've created this resource, Find Your Town, that anyone can use to tell the story of the natural resources, the small businesses, the character, the unique history that their town has to help attract residents, businesses, new investments, and really help to grow their economy and make it thrive again. And all of this, again, was built with government data and through developers like you. So the last example that I want to give you is about this tool that's called Jobseeker that was built by a company called Perrin. And so something else that you guys might have some experience with, maybe this is you or someone in your family or someone you know who might be in a military family. So one of the challenges that you might know about is that, especially for military spouses, when families have to move around a lot, it can be really hard for a military spouse to maintain a career trajectory because you're having to move so much and have so many disruptions to your career. So even if you have really incredible skills like leadership, resilience, creative problem solving, things that are super valuable to employers, it might be hard to kind of translate that into a resume or a cover letter, or even to find the right job opportunities where people would value those skills. So Perrin used, again, open data, as you might have guessed, to create a solution to that problem. So Perrin took a really awesome new open API called the Open Skills API that the Department of Labor created in partnership with the University of Chicago, and also used data from companies like Glassdoor that you might know about to pull together a ton of information on jobs, apprenticeship opportunities, training programs. So Perrin took all of that information, they combined it with their unique technology that helps to translate, basically take a survey, you guys can all go online and do this, tries to extract information about the unique skill set that you have, generates not only sort of a custom template for a resume and cover letter that communicates your soft skills, but also then uses government data to actually point out job and apprenticeship and training opportunities that are in your local community, and helping military families, whether spouses or veterans coming off of active duty. Maybe you are an artillery specialist in the military. How do you translate that into a civilian job? Jobseeker is something that helps you to do that. So what do all of these tools have in common? And the answer, in addition to the fact that they're great, is that they were created through the Opportunity Project. And all of these tools, are available at opportunity.census.gov. So if you have a phone or a laptop in your hand and want to check it out, we encourage you to follow along or go there after this talk. But there have been over 40 of these tools created to date through the Opportunity Project. And they've been created from companies that you know about, probably like LinkedIn, Airbnb, Fitbit, Mapbox, but also startups, small businesses, universities, even civic tech organizations that some of you might be involved in. So we've worked with a lot of people, and at the core of that process is developers. So I'm going to tell you guys a little bit more about how that actually works. So before I do that, I want to return to the original idea that we started with, which is that we can solve real problems like the ones I just described with government data, and we just have to get the right people in a room together, or virtually together. So the Opportunity Project is one of the processes that we have created in government to do exactly that. So I'll talk a little bit more about how this actually works, but what it means at the core is that we bring together developers, technologists, policy leaders, communities, people on the ground who really understand the economic challenges that people are facing, and we create a process for them to work together to create these solutions. And that is the Opportunity Project. So I'm going to tell you a little bit more about how this actually works in practice. So we created the Opportunity Project first had the idea back in December 2015, but it officially launched in March 2016, and we have since really identified 3 goals of this work. So the first one, like I just mentioned, is to facilitate collaboration between technologists, government, and people in communities across the country. We want to create the lightest weight, easiest process. Like Susie mentioned, it may be something that we all think about with government, that it can be slow and not so responsive and difficult to work with. So through the Opportunity Project, we want to create an experience, especially for developers and technologists, but for everyone, that is easy, lightweight, makes sense, easy for you to come to us or for us to reach out to you and work together to solve a problem that we're all interested in. So the second thing, which I want to talk a little bit more about, is our goals around data. So obviously, a really core element of this process is the data that we want people to work with. So has anyone ever been to data.gov? Show of hands. Awesome.
Cool.
Okay, like maybe 40%. That's great. So hopefully it was a magical experience for you. But you may have noticed that there's, since 2009 when data.gov was launched, there have been almost 200,000 data sets added to data.gov, which is wonderful, and we really believe that transparency and access to information that belongs to all of us as public data is really critical, and that's a really important first step. But we also want to go a step further and say it shouldn't just be on a website. It should actually be accessible and easy to use and developer friendly, and it should actually be translated into solutions for people. So the Opportunity Project is sort of one of the things that we've built on top of that layer of open data to help people actually dive into it who have the technical skills to transform it into something useful. So that's another principle that we really believe in, and it sounds like everyone here does as well, is that data is only as valuable as the tools that we have to consume it. So that's something that developers really bring to the table, and why developers are so critical to this process is because we need you to help us translate this information into solutions. And then obviously the third part of this is that this isn't just about data and building something for fun. This is about actually generating outcomes for people who who could stand to benefit economically from these tools. So although 40 tools have been created to date, we don't want to just stop at that number. We want to look several years down the line and say, how many people were able to keep their family afloat because of a tool that they used? How many rural communities were able to generate new investments after really struggling economically because they had access to this technology? And that's why we need your help. So I'll tell you a little bit more about how this process actually works. So the Opportunity Project works through something that we're all probably familiar with, a technology development sprint of about 10 to 12 weeks. So we bring together all of these pieces of the ecosystem, the technologists, the community members, the policy leaders, and we start with a problem. So if you go to opportunity.census.gov, what you'll see on our build page is some user scenarios, which are just really detailed descriptions of the problems that people are facing. So we believe really strongly in human-centered design, which Radhika is going to talk a little bit more about, and starting from a realistic problem that actually is in need of a solution. So for instance, if you click on any of these user scenarios, you'll see a really first-hand description of a problem, for example, from a community leader in New Orleans who really needs access to information so that she can be a better advocate for people in her neighborhood to get housing assistance or to get compensation for damage to their homes. Or someone who is a young person who's experiencing homelessness, who really needs access to information on Wi-Fi hotspots or a safe shelter so that she can prepare for a really important job interview the next day. So if you check these out, you'll see some of the problems that we've tackled so far. The next piece is obviously the data. And so, like I said, some of you, have been to data.gov, and if you go to data.gov/opportunity, you'll see a collection of data sets that we think are really relevant to these problems. But one of the things that we've tried to do is make it really easy for people to find, especially for developers, technologists who are building through this process, to find the information that they need. So if you went to data.gov and were trying to find something like Wi-Fi hotspots, it might not be the easiest thing to find, or in general to know what data on, what open government data is even available to solve these problems. Is it at the federal level? Is it at the state level or the city level? Does my city have that data? So we try to create an experience that helps developers to find that information really easily so that you can start actually working with the data. And the other thing that we do is take your feedback on how to improve our data quality, because we are working with the Census Bureau and other agencies that are responsible for stewarding this data. We want your feedback so that we can improve it and have a better experience and be able to create better products in the back end. So like I said, this works through a development sprint. We bring together all of these pieces of the puzzle. Developers, people with lived experience, data experts collaborate over 10 to 12 weeks and build, whether it's an app, a website, incorporate data into a platform, a digital marketing strategy, anything that uses data to solve one of these problems in a human-centered way. And then we help to connect them with people who actually need them. So one of the things that I wanted to emphasize is that all we do in this process is facilitate. We bring people to the table, and then we let you guys actually drive the solutions. We really believe that people who have tech expertise, who know how to build things, technologists who exist in the world to create and think of technology solutions to problems should be the ones who are driving the solutions. And so that's why you're such a critical component of the process and why we try not to get in the way too much. So like I said, probably a dozen times so far. You can check out all of this information at opportunity.census.gov. You can also see some of the problems that we've solved so far, everything from promoting emotional well-being in communities to helping military families to helping homeless veterans and homeless young people find the resources that they need to thrive and succeed economically. So I'm going to turn it over to Radhika, who is going to talk a little bit more about what we're doing next and how we think that you guys should get involved.
Yeah, so thank you. Drew has done an amazing job of just talking about what we've done so far, and now I want to tell you a little bit more about what's coming up and how you all can get involved. So we just launched 2 new cohorts. One of them is focused on the problem of homelessness. So we have partnered with a couple different government agencies and nonprofits as well that have familiarity with homelessness. So specifically, we have one team focusing on youth homelessness. So for example, we've partnered with Fairfax County Public Schools, which is a county close to DC, and we're working with them to understand what people that are young and homeless, what they're experiencing and if they're still going to school and what their experience is like. Then we're also working with the Department of Veterans Affairs and veterans medical facilities to understand what homeless veterans are experiencing, what they need, and how we can help them using technology. And also coming up in the future, if you came to our workshop yesterday, you might have heard a little bit about what we're doing with the 2020 census. And so another sprint that we have coming up is going to focus on how to engage hard-to-count populations for the 2020 census. And we're super excited to be working on that, and we can definitely talk more with you about that as well. And then, as we've talked about, a lot of these things that we focus on, specifically the goal is to increase economic opportunity for all Americans. So in the future, we also hope to launch a sprint on streamlining access to federal funding for local communities like the one that Drew mentioned. And so, like we've talked about it a lot, that human-centered design is at the core of our process, and we care a lot about the end user and making these tools sustainable. But I also just want to tell you a little bit about this role that we introduced recently called the user advocate role. So I've talked about the local nonprofits and the grassroots organizations that are our partners, but they serve a really important role as the user advocate. So we've found that we really want people to use these tools. We want them to be sustainable, and we want to create impact using data. And so the user advocate role really allows us to do that. They give us the insight about what's going on at the community level and what people need. So for example, I actually had a call yesterday with the team that's working on veterans homelessness, and I was speaking with a nurse practitioner that works at a veterans medical facility, and that team is building a tool that kind of connects the people at the veterans medical facility, like doctors and the care providers, with the actual patient that's coming in. And they are building a tool that is going to be accessible on mobile, so iOS and Android, and also via computer. And so my question was, do homeless veterans actually have access to that technology, or is that an assumption that we're making? And this nurse practitioner that I spoke with informed me and the whole team that, yes, they do have access to technology. They regularly use phones, so that's why this tool that's being built for mobile and desktop is going to be used and is going to create impact. So that's an insight that we would really only be able to get from someone that interfaces with veterans and that understands what they're going through. So that's really how we focus on human-centered design, and we're able to create that and create sustainable solutions. And another thing that I think we've learned over this past year is that it's kind of been a humbling experience for us as federal employees, because oftentimes we work with program managers that oversee national programs and understand national data, but we don't really get to see the community level data. We don't get to see what's going on at the community. So that's really why the user advocate role, again, is super important in understanding and making these tools sustainable. So I've also talked a lot about sustainability. So I just briefly want to mention something that we learned over this past year is that, so the hackathon model, I'll talk a little bit about that. So how many people have been to a hackathon? Cool. And how many people today, or like right now, know that the tools that they built are still being used? Amazing, one person, that's great. So as you can see, we just saw that hackathons are awesome. They get everyone together. You get to hack away. You get to build things. But the problem is that oftentimes after the day or the weekend when you get together, the tools don't last very long or they're not used. So we kind of learned that, that's not what we want. As the Opportunity Project, we want to create sustainable solutions that carry on, that continue, and that really help people with anything that they need. So we kind of say no to the hackathon model, and that's why we really want to drive sustainable solutions, and the user advocate role in getting all these people at the table is super helpful with that. So that being said, I want to talk to you about different ways in which all of you can get involved in the Opportunity Project. So we've talked about the sprint process, but there's also many other ways that you can get involved with us outside of just the sprint. So is anyone involved in local civic tech communities from where they're from? So that includes like Women Who Code or Hack for Good, and yeah, Code for America, that's a big one as well. Yeah, cool. So that's great to see that a lot of people are involved. I'm super involved in Women Who Code DC, so that's great. But so this tool is one example. Iron Yard in DC, in New York City, they worked with their students. They brought in the Opportunity Project model to their classroom, and they worked with students to use our curated federal data sets to create tools, for example, in New York City. So the students in the class were able to take Opportunity Project problem statements and data and apply it to a problem that they understood or had experience with. So this one app is called Feed New York City, and it's actually available in the App Store for download. And it maps food aid facilities in New York City. So if anyone needs a soup kitchen or a food aid pantry, then you can look at this information on a mobile app. You can find information about where you are and where the closest facility is, and go to it and receive those resources if you need them. So that's one way, you can take the Opportunity Project model. We have a playbook that we can share with you that you can take, and you can bring it to your local civic tech community and work on problems in your community or work on problems that you're interested in. And also in the same way, I want to talk to you about this tool that was created last year called Streetwise. So a big thing that we also care about is working with you to get feedback about our data and your experience working with government data. So this tool called Streetwise is super awesome. We love talking about it. So this is a tool that was created to ground truth data. So for example, this is mapped grocery stores in Oakland, so not too far from here, using Department of Housing and Urban Development data. So all the purple dots that you see are county-reported grocery stores. So this is pulling from HUD data, federal data. And this tool, it's a mobile app, and it allows people living in the community to actually correct the data. So according to federal data, all these purple dots are grocery stores. So to me, that would say, that means that people have access to healthy food, and that there's lots of grocery stores, and maybe this is a healthy community. But after the ground truthing, you can actually see that a lot of these places are not, in fact, grocery stores. They're maybe convenience stores or liquor stores, for that matter. So yeah, so this actually, it's super important because it tells the community that these, in fact, the community may not have access to healthy food, which is super important for people's well-being. So in this way, Streetwise is really helpful in correcting government data, giving us feedback, and telling us actually what the real situation is on the ground at the community level. So all this being said, we've talked so much about how developers are at the core of this process and so important, and we're really here to tell you that we need you and that we want you to work with us. So we've talked a lot about how developers are so critical, and you're so important because you transform data into actual tools. You're responsible for creating sustainable tools and for really creating impact in your community or in a community around the US. So we currently have a mini hack going on in the next room that uses specifically census data. So you can use census APIs or City SDK to map the US population or just do different things with census data. And the biggest part with that is that we really want your feedback on that information and your experience using census APIs. And then afterwards, this doesn't have to end here. We'll be here for a couple hours. Come talk to us. Come tell us what you're interested in working on. We'd love to hear it. And also, you can follow along on opportunity.census.gov. We'll be putting new information on there. And also feel free to email us at opportunityproject@doc.gov. And we would just love to connect with you and to keep this going as well.
So one of the things that I just wanted to remind everyone or challenge everyone before we close out is, of course, we really want to work with you, but we also want to challenge you to build for people who are not currently being served by technology. So another one of our principles is that as people who have technical skills and have the privilege of working with data and technology, we also have a lot of responsibility to share those resources and those skills to benefit everyone across the country. And one of the things that a lot of the leaders from our team have said over and over that we really believe is that technology shouldn't be considered revolutionary until it helps every person. So we challenge you to build for people who would never think of technology as part of the answer for them. So whether that's someone in a tribal nation who has hardly any data on their community at all, or someone from a rural community who's never even thought of technology as part of any solution, or a homeless veteran who is really not thinking about that at all, how can we bring technology to those people and make that part of the solution for them? That's what we want to challenge you to do, and we really hope that you join us, and we can't wait to see what you build. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, okay.
Thanks.
Are they gonna?
Great. We can put 10 minutes on the clock, or 12 minutes because they saved a little bit of time.
Yeah.
Thank you. That was amazing. What did you guys think?
Woo.
Amazing. So I think that yesterday in the keynote, we talked about where applications meet infrastructure and how the definition of infrastructure is changing. I think infrastructure includes society, and we talked about the opportunity that we all have in improving how applications meet society. And so this was an awesome talk. It's amazing the transformation that you guys have done within the government. Tell me a little bit. Now, you're both very much pushing about user experience design and development and the opportunity for developers. Just tell us more about the importance of that.
Mm-hmm. So one thing that I was just thinking about as well is human-centered design. When you're building tools and when you're building things, at the end of it, there's probably going to be a person interfacing with it, a person using it. So that's really where we pull in this whole idea of build with your user instead of for them. And that, I think, is just at the core of what we're doing and what we think about. And that also, to me, like as a user experience designer, I'm always thinking about if I'm going to create something, who's going to be using it, what do they need, why do they need this, and all that I think applies to even the tools that all of you guys are building. If a person's going to be using it, then I think the idea should be easy to use, it should be understandable, it should be accessible. All those things come into play.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent.
The other thing that I would say is with the Opportunity Project, we try to think about that question at two levels. The first is obviously with the tools that are being built, but the second is really with the developers experiencing interaction with government. We want to optimize the experience for you, as human beings who are interacting with government, trying to use government data, APIs, or even if it's just trying to call someone on the phone and get the information that you need. We really want to optimize that user experience because, like so many examples from earlier this morning about if there's two people who are trying to solve the same problem, even if they're from different companies or in our case from different sectors, we want to make it as easy as possible to collaborate so that we can get to the solution faster for the members of the public who need it.
Awesome. And I love the point that you made about building solutions, encouraging the community to build solutions for those who are not currently served by tech. So how did you come up with that? Is that just core to what everybody's thinking? Are you guys driving that vision with opportunity?
Yeah, I don't know if we can take credit for that entirely, but the history of the Opportunity Project was really, it started from an economic mobility team who, were really focused on ending homelessness and helping people to connect with jobs and the resources that they need. And it didn't really start from technology. It started from, equality of economic opportunity and creating job opportunities and growth opportunities for everyone. And then we kind of merged with the tech people and the open data mission and started to ask that question of, can we really solve these problems with data and technology? And so this was all sort of an experiment to ask that question, and it took off, and the developer community really jumped on board, and we saw that there were solutions being generated that were really working for people, or were at least the right proof of concept, so we kept going. And I think the tool that I talked about, Find Your Town, we kind of had that aha moment of, okay, so we started this project and it's all about cities, and we didn't mean for it to be, but it's something that kind of happens in the tech world in general. So we really worked to bring the right people into the mix from rural America to ensure that we were creating something that solved their problems as well, and we got an awesome solution in Find Your Town. So we continue to push ourselves to think about what are the problems that aren't obvious that we can help to solve through this model.
Excellent. And by the way, we're going to open up for a couple of questions from the audience in a little bit. So a big thing that's coming up is the census. So the census is measured taken once every 10 years. And I think that there's an important mission and problem that you guys want us to work on there as well. Can you talk a bit about that?
Yeah, sure. So I guess I can give like a little background to the census. So we've seen that over the past, I guess the last census that was done, it was estimated that about 18% of the US population went uncounted. And so that's actually that's a huge amount of people. And the whole point of the census, it's constitutionally mandated that every individual in the United States gets counted. And that information is super important because it helps apportion federal funds for for just communities around the U.S. And it also helps understand or give the right number for House of Representative seats and also electoral college votes. So from that, it's super important that we correctly count the population. But we've found that with this 18% that goes uncounted, it's difficult to make sure that everyone is counted. So we want to make sure for this upcoming 2020 census that we count all those people. We count everyone. And so that's really our focus. Do you want to talk a little bit more?
Yeah, I think the only thing I would add is that we do our team at the census really does understand some of the things that drive non-participation or just make it hard to find people, and that can be everything from distrust in federal government to not understanding what the census does or knowing whether it's legit when they show up at your door, to not speaking English or not knowing how to participate, or something that we talked about in the workshop yesterday was people being really mobile and just people who want to participate, but it's really hard to reach them. So the census is doing a really incredible job of thinking really creatively about how we modernize the census so that everyone is able to participate.
Awesome. One more question, which is that you guys have great skills. I'm sure you're employable by so many places. You could work anywhere that you wanted to. But you're working for the government. So what made you choose this? Do you love this? Would you rather do something else? Why did you choose this career path for yourselves?
Sure, I guess I can go first. So I've been in the federal government for about a year and a half now, and it's been super interesting for me. This was my first federal job, and yeah, it's been really interesting being inside the government and seeing how the government works from the inside. Because I mean, I would be honest, I even learned more about the census recently than I even knew as like a regular citizen. So I think that I'm just learning a lot more about how the government functions, and I love that. Like, I love learning all these things. And I've also found that just like in some, like when all the work that we do at the government, in the government, is for the American people. So it's also kind of this feeling that all the work that we're doing is in the end helping people do what they need to do. And I just think that is what makes me love working in the federal government, because I'm creating impact and I'm helping people. So, and also another like brief thing about like innovating in the government. I think like people might laugh at that because like people are like, oh, the government isn't innovative. But I think unique to our team and the space that we're part of, we are innovating in government. We're kind of breaking down those barriers, those silos within teams, and it's as challenging as it is to do that. Once we actually break down a silo, it's great to be like, yes, we did that, and like things are working better now, and people are getting work done. People are getting the help that they need. So it's a really awesome feeling working towards that, and then seeing what we're able to do.
Yeah, I agree with all of that for sure. I've had the opportunity to work at, this is my third federal agency in addition to the Domestic Policy Council at the White House a couple years ago. And for me, I think it's just a really great opportunity to serve, and you know, like Radhika said, to serve members of the public. It's something that at the federal agencies I find that people believe really strongly, is that we are there to serve the people of the United States, and that's an incredible privilege. And I think the more that we have technical skills and can make efficiency gains and do a better job for each other, we should do that. And it's something that over the last few years, a lot of the people who have been our leaders have talked about a lot, is encouraging, like everyone in this room, to come into government and do a tour of duty and lend your skills to creating a better government and better country and world for all of us. So yeah, I hope you do that. It's really, obviously, if you've worked at large companies, it's the same level of large bureaucracy. But you're doing it all with the goal of creating a better country for all of us. So
Awesome. Questions from the audience? Does anybody have a question? Here we go, right here.
So I hinted at it before. What is your relationship to other government agencies that work in the digital realm, like 18F, the U.S. Digital Service, and also, to some extent, Code for America, which works mostly at the city level, but is attempting to do the same thing?
Yeah, so we were the Opportunity Project was sort of incubated out of the same general mothership of all of those things, USDS, and we worked with a lot of Presidential Innovation Fellows. They were co-founding members of our team and have been really incredible to keeping this process going. So we work closely with the PIFs. A founding entity of the Opportunity Project was the Office of Science and Technology Policy back in 2015. So they're all sort of like the core family of the Opportunity Project. Code for America has also been a really incredible partner. We had an Opportunity Project challenge at the National Day of Civic Hacking last year when we had brigades across the country. This is a lot of CFA jargon for people who might not be familiar, but basically cities and groups across the country hosted hackathons. Some of them, even did longer 6-week sort of hackathons around the Opportunity Project, addressing local issues. So we've tried to stay really close to civic tech, and I think Radhika mentioned we have this toolkit that we are trying to propagate and get people to pilot and share feedback on, and I think civic tech is a great way to do that.
Great. Other questions from the audience? Yep.
Yeah, this is wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You talked briefly about post-hackathon code that was abandoned. How about for your formal projects? Do you evaluate them in terms of adoption by the people you're trying to target?
Yes. So I'll take a stab at that and then feel free to add. So yes, we do. And much like hackathons, there was a learning curve of how we get to a place where every tool that's created is set up for wild success and adoption and sustainability. So we've done sort of 3 waves of sprints with anywhere from 12 to 24 tech teams building at the same time. Early on, we didn't necessarily set the clear expectation that we expected everything to be sustainable because we were sort of in a proof of concept phase. But over the last year, we've come around to a place where we are setting the expectation and have put in a lot of infrastructure through partnership with user advocates, partnership with local service facilities, and just a greater expectation that what is created through the sprint will continue to grow. We ask teams to sort of commit to sustaining them and designing them in a sustainable way, and then we try to bring the end users to the table from the very beginning so that there is a path to adoption. All of the tools that I talked about at the beginning, so Opportunity Score, Find Your Town, and Jobseeker, are all actually reaching end users and being used by communities now. So for example, Find Your Town, I think, has like 200 communities who are using it currently, which they frankly see as just the beginning and want to see it used everywhere. So it's a year in and we're still young as an initiative, but we are seeing that some of the communities, some are, hopefully most of the tools are being adopted, and we want to set that expectation so that for the future and the sprints that we're doing now, every tool is wildly successful and that we can track the specific impact on people and communities.
Mm-hmm. We've also worked in about a week or 2 in this coming sprint for usability testing as well. So like exactly partnering with the user advocates to actually get the tool in front of people to be tested and then improved. So I think in the future it would absolutely be interesting to see all the metrics on which tools are adopted and how many people are using them.
Great, fantastic. So for all of you here at DevNet Create, as well as virtually online, as you know, we formed DevNet Create. This is our first time doing it. We're hoping to build the community amongst all of you. And we've had DevNet for 3 years. And in doing this, we actually viewed DevNet Create as kind of our give back. So to really give back to the developers and really help the app devs and also help solve real problems. One thing that we are hoping to do, and I'm going to ask all of you about it because it'll be for our community, is as we go forward as a community, we could center many of our efforts around the Opportunity Project and helping to solve problems like this. Is this something that would be interesting to all of you? Yeah?
Cool.
All right. So, tonight in our closing session, we can figure out how we can actually work together as a community to solve problems like this, using the technologies that all of you have, the industries that you're from, just even as your individuals or students and developers, how we can all contribute. We're going to have to figure out how to do this together. But I think that we have a big opportunity with the Opportunity Project and a lot that we can do with all of you with the new DevNet Create community. Thank you very much, Drew and Radhika.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you. Great. We're giving you can we still do a 15-minute break, or does it have to be 10 minutes? 10 minutes? Okay, 10-minute break, be back. You're going to hear from Damon, so please get back to your seats in 10 minutes. Go, break. Thank you.